A Corps has to be a tailorable, scalable, rapidly deployable organization that can command up to about 140,000 soldiers, Corps command divisions. And so for us specifically, we're the only Corps that's assigned to a combatant command, which is pretty neat. Out of the 3 Corps, we're assigned to Pacific Command as of last year when the Corps got back from Afghanistan.
Sir, the move is on to refocus on the Pacific. What does First Corps bring to the table?
The number one thing we bring is a combat-tested organization. Was in Afghanistan a year and a half ago, Iraq a couple years before that. So really the only formation at that level, the operational level, that the PACOM Pacific Command commander has, that's been in a conflict recently. Battle-tested, proven, and very capable organization that, again, up to 140,000 soldiers, so it gives a PACOM commander options.
So of the 140,000 soldiers, how many have combat experience?
A good 90% of them are going to have. The leaders are all going to have it, just about. The senior leaders for sure, mid-level. But even those that don't have combat experience are such high quality today that they very quickly pick up on, as you walk around here, for example, in this exercise, you'll see some folks without combat experience are doing a tremendous job. So that's not necessarily the approval authority or the gateway to success. There's a lot of successful folks who didn't get to combat for many years and were still successful, but we have a large chunk, a majority are combat tested, and a lot of them with the Corps as well.
When we talk about the Pacific region, just what are we talking about?
52% of the Earth's surface is in the Pacific region. So when you look at all the combatant commands, 52% of the Earth is in the Pacific region. It's a big region, 36 countries. Now there's some things those countries have in common in the Pacific. 7 of the 10 largest armies in the world are in the Pacific. 7 of the 10 largest. So although there's a lot of blue in the Pacific, and people think, well, that's very naval and air-centric, well, people live on the land. And again, the greater majority of these 36 countries, in fact, all of them have armies. Not all of them have air forces, navies, Marines. So there's a real army tie in the Pacific in this huge area. It's a big area.
As I understand it, First Corps has been designated as the force of choice for U.S. Pacific Command. What does this mean? Well,
I'm not sure I'd like to think we're designated as the force of choice. We're clearly, the Pacific Commander has a lot of options. That's the good news. And you need that. In today's environment, you're not going to do anything unless you're joint, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Coast Guard included, and then interagency, intergovernmental, and multinational. That's just the way the world is today. But the Army brings a huge capability, again, battle-tested, proven around the world, flexible, tailorable. For example, we have a early entry command post in First Corps that very rapidly it can go anywhere needed in the Pacific in a very timely manner. So, those are things, capabilities the Pacific Commander needs, but I would not say that any force is the only force. It's got to be a joint fight for sure.
Sir, with all the changes that the Army is going through, less resources, sharply less money, you're losing a brigade. How does this enable you to still lean forward and accomplish your mission?
Given the fiscal challenge, it is a difficult time. The good news is for us that because of the nation's focus on the Pacific, we're getting cut and we're losing, but not at the same amount as places like Europe, where we're really coming down to numbers. But it is a challenge. You can't do more with less. You have to do what matters most with less, so you have to prioritize more. We used to say, just keep doing more with less, but you get to the point, you'll run yourself into the ground, you can't do it. But you have to do what matters most with less. And so you have to prioritize more. And that's what we're doing. We can't do everything, but we're prioritizing. And we can still fulfill our mission and support the Pacific Commander and the rebalance and the focus in the Pacific, even with the fiscal challenges. It's tougher, I'll tell you. And I worry about where's that line where we keep getting so low that we can't keep doing it. We're watching that constantly. But right now we can do it and have confidence our leadership will keep allowing us to do our important mission.
I have read that some say that this renewed focus on the Pacific is a policy of containment.
Nothing could be further from the truth. I think Admiral Locklear got it best. He said, the rebalance is a strategy of collaboration and not containment. It's a strategy of collaboration and building on prosperity. Well, again, this exercise we're in, Talisman Sabre, is a great example. It's reaching out and collaborating more for security. And those that think it's containment don't understand it. And it's very few. And they don't understand it's about collaboration and cooperation and peace and prosperity for everybody.
So if there is collaboration with 36 countries in the area, what do you see as a threat?
Well, there are some significant threats. In fact, I'd say the most significant threat in the world right now, North Korea. You've got a 29-year-old leader that, if you just read the news, comes up with some interesting ideas. And so there's certainly the high-end threat of like a conflict in North Korea, which nobody wants, and we want peace and prosperity. The most likely thing that would occur in the Pacific, though, is a disaster. Unfortunately, the way the geography is, the terrain, and you look at one thing I can't predict for certain, there will be a disaster of some type, a tsunami, flooding, earthquake. You look what happened in Japan a few years ago, kind of all three of those almost, and so it's very difficult. So we prepare for everything from humanitarian assistance, disaster response, all the way up to the high end. Again, God forbid we'd have to go to war, but that's what our nation asks us to do. If needed.
This is such a large geographical area, 16 time zones. How do you achieve a efficient, effective, and quick response?
I would tell you that one of the problems the Army faced in the past was not adapting and being tailorable enough. We would say, yes, we can support a mission in the Pacific if you give us 48 days and et cetera. That won't work anymore. You have to be much more agile, tailorable, and rapidly deployable, like our early entry command post that can go within hours, and forces, whether they need 100 forces or 100,000. We're very fortunate where we're located. We're located at Joint Base Lewis-McChord, which is the closest base to a port, multiple ports actually. We're only 8 miles from a deep water port, and we're co-located with 52 C-17s. We're a joint base, Air Force, Army, so there's some big advantages to that. So those C-17s that can take us anywhere in the world we're joined at the hip, and they're right there with us. So we have some real advantages, and some of which can get us places faster in the Pacific than units that are in the Pacific.
We're here in Australia at Exercise Talisman Sabre. What's the job for First Corps here?
Our role is we're the Combined Forces Land Component Commander. So everybody on the land we control, even if the Marines, Army, even Navy SEALs, anybody on the land is under the CFLIC control. And that's a challenge. And while we've done a lot of real world combat, I mentioned earlier how experienced the Corps is in Iraq and Afghanistan, we didn't tend to work a lot with Navy ships, for example, while we were in Iraq or Afghanistan. We worked with Navy personnel, but not so much with the Navy ships. We didn't do the high-end combined arms maneuver fighting, and we're doing that here in the training. Probably most important is this is a certification exercise for us.
So what exactly does that mean?
What it means is it's like, you wouldn't want a mechanic working on your car who wasn't certified to do it. So it's just like you wouldn't want a corps or an operational headquarters going and doing a tough mission if they weren't certified. So we're evaluated. We've had about 60 evaluators here from the Joint Staff in Washington, D.C., from the Mission Command Training Program at Combined Arms Center Leavenworth, and they evaluate us very closely, and then we'll go through a process to either be certified or not certified as a joint task force, so we can do missions for the PACOM commander anywhere in the Pacific. And he has confidence. He knows these guys know what they're doing. Nobody's going to be perfect. They learned their lessons. They've trained them, and we'll actually back brief him next month and be stamped certified and ready to go anywhere and do anything. Now, we could do it today before we're certified, but it's just another step in the process of making sure that we're able to do our mission anywhere in the Pacific.
Are you running into any unexpected missteps along the way?
Every day.
Really?
Yeah, and they're intentional. I mean, the way these certifications are designed, they're going to make you sweat. if you're doing real well, they'll keep ramping up and they'll throw in curveballs from the left and right. That's how it is. So that's why it's a great drill, the certification, because it's not easy. Even if you're good, they're going to keep pushing you. It's the same way our combat training centers do it at NTC and JRTC. I mean, you're not going to go through all this effort and have an easy time. That'd be stupid. You want the scrimmage to be harder than the game.
So you're saying at your level, you've got an OP4?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, there's an OP4 opposing force against us every day, and they're thinking of devious ways. For example, in a complex scenario, I had a little deception operation from the west to have forces come from a direction the enemy didn't expect, and there was no enemy there, and it looked like it was going to work brilliantly. All of a sudden, the enemy showed up there, and how about that? So they're going to make it tough on you, and that's good. That's what where you can look in the mirror and know we've done all we can do. We're certified. We're ready to go, and you can with confidence tell your superiors and subordinates that you're ready to go and we're trained and certified.
This is a really large exercise. Some 30,000 military participating. Have you had any reactions or feedback from other nations in the region?
Are other nations paying attention? Absolutely. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, we did something pretty amazing. We took an airborne unit, an airborne brigade, 4th Brigade, 25th Infantry Division from Alaska. They got on C-17s, 5 C-17s, and flew, some 15 hours nonstop, refueling in the air, and then jumped into Australia. If anybody would have told me that would go off as well as it did, and that would be something that's that easy to do, relatively easy, I would have said, my gosh, no way. But that shows incredible flexibility, agility, and reach. 15 hours in the air and then jumping into a combat situation, being extremely successful in the operation. That's tough, and it's pretty amazing. So yeah, people are, the good news is it helps as we prevent conflict, that people see you have a very credible force that's capable, so they're less likely to do stupid things against you or towards you. And we have ability to shape forces and shape those forces that may not have as great a military as Australia and the United States, and they want to work with us so we can help them get better, so they do more and we do less. All part of the strategy in the Pacific: prevent, shape, and win. If needed, win.
The Marines have a presence here in Australia. Will the Army follow suit?
We're not moving towards basing in countries. We're moving more towards the ability to project power and then bring it back to its the mainland U.S. or Hawaii or wherever they're based out of. We don't see a lot of growth in countries like we did in Europe, where we went up to 200,000 people in Europe. It's really not the, first of all, a lot of the countries don't want that type of permanent presence. They would rather have a consistent presence, but more through exercises and engagements. It's also more cost effective. And it benefits our country more, quite honestly. The money's being poured into the economy in Washington State instead of somewhere else. So I understand why the Marines are doing it, and that's great, but we're different from the Marines, and we will have a presence in Australia and throughout the Pacific. We do. We have about 75,000 soldiers consistently in the Pacific, but not all need to live there and be permanently based there.
With 75,000 soldiers on the ground, what are the different kinds of events they're involved in?
Well, in the 36 countries in the Pacific, we'll have involvement, everything from an exchange of non-commissioned officers to learn professionalism and leadership and improve their skills, everything from marksmanship to map reading. And we'll have exchanges in specialty areas like jungle schools and northern warfare schools, even in northern Japan. And then we'll have leadership exchanges. We'll have forces come over to the United States and train with us. It's a wide variety of everything from small exchanges of individuals to unit exchanges where a whole unit will go and train with other armies. It's really important, again, I get back to that, the prevent, shape, and win strategy. To prevent conflict, you have a credible force and you help your allies to shape. You help shape the conditions so there can be peace and prosperity and collaboration, what Rebalance is all about. And then if needed, if you have to go fight, you want to win. Nobody wants to come in second place. And so if you're training together, you're much more likely to do better when you're together in conflict than if you never see each other. I mean, that's just common sense.
Sir, what's the hardest part about working in the Pacific?
The tyranny of distance. It is a huge place. The first, when I got back, it briefs well, let's just get back in the Pacific, but I remember flying some 15 hours to Australia, and then I had to go to the Philippines. I thought, well, that's just a couple hours away. No, it was another 9 hours. And then I had to go to Japan, and I thought, well, that's just a couple hours away. And that was another 9 hours in the air. It's a huge place. I mean, I think I saw on a map one time, it's like 4 United States back to back across the Pacific. So the most difficult aspect is the tyranny of distance.
So from the American perspective, where's the payoff?
Well, the payoff's obvious. 4 of the largest nations in the world are in the Pacific, 3 of the largest economies in the world. And so we're so tied to the Pacific economically. They're our largest trading partner by far. And so peace and prosperity in the Pacific means better economic prosperity at home, and means better security and everything else. And as you look at how the world has shifted, it really is a terrific strategy in that the shift has been, we've always been in the Pacific, we've always been a Pacific nation, but clearly, it's not that we're abandoning other partners, but clearly this shift to the Pacific is smart because of the incredible economic opportunities, partnerships, and an ability to, in a region where 90-some% of the world's oil flows through, a region where, it's just a critically important region. And so the more stable and secure and peaceful the Pacific is, the more stable and secure and peaceful the United States is.
Multinational military partnerships are important. Do we all share the same strategic goals?
That's a great question. I would say the majority of the nations in the Pacific simply want a better future for their citizens and more prosperity and peace, that's for sure. Now, of course, you always differ in the proper method to get there. And for example, no one wants a U.S.-China conflict. It benefits no one. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. We're so tied economically. So no one wants to be put choosing between the United States and China. And that's certainly not the purpose of Rebalance. As I said, Rebalance is about collaboration. We want to do more with China. We want to collaborate closer, and we want to have those military-to-military exchanges that lead to better peace and prosperity. And that's what the greater majority, I can't think of anyone in the Pacific that doesn't have that goal. But there are different ideas and different methodologies of what's the best way to get there, that's for sure.
So what's next for the Force of Choice?
First Corps, typically we'd be involved in 2 or 3 exercises a year to show how Rebalance has impacted 7 major exercises this year alone we'll be involved in. This is the biggest. But next month we go to an major exercise in Korea. Right after that we go to a major exercise in Japan. And we'll have another exercise, a large exercise in Thailand, then one in the Philippines. So the train's moving fast, and it keeps moving. And it's all great stuff, exciting, challenging exercises, all that help us. We're also, after we get back from Korea, we'll have done a couple of major high-end warfighting exercises. We're getting with Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force, and they're giving us the lessons learned from Operation Tomodachi after the earthquake and tsunami and nuclear disaster, and learning those lessons because, as I mentioned earlier, probably the most likely thing we'd be deployed for would be a disaster response. So we're going to get the lessons from that. So we're doing a high-end warfighting, and we'll go back and look at what they learn in disaster response, how we would apply it there, and then we'll go back and do some more training with other nations. So we're out there really demonstrating tailorable, flexible, agile, out in the Pacific, and then forces as well, training back at Joint Base Lewis McChord. So we're really proud to be part of the Pacific Command team. Again, pretty exciting, the only corps assigned to a combatant commander in U.S. Army Pacific, which is a great organization and has really developed an amazing strategy for the Pacific. So we're proud to be part of the team.